I was Eurythmics giving you Sweet Dream starting off the show. This is the Big Boss Show. Welcome to your Saturday edition of Legends 966. The Big Boss Show starts officially right now. Hopefully you're having a lovely start to your morning. It's a Saturday, 8th of February, and today is my second guest on the show. She's here. Now let me give you a little bit of introduction about who she is. My guest today is a Sri Lankan marine biologist, ocean educator and pioneer of blue whale research within the northern Indian Ocean. She's known for her Blue Whale project. She's a senior TED fellow and was chosen for a BBC 100 Women Award in 2018, a young global leader by the World Economic Forum, and countless other international awards. Now, if I start to list the rest of her awards and achievements, for the next 10 minutes, I'll be just reading them out. So I will not do that, but I will say that her career and her achievements are nothing short of remarkable and inspirational. I have the honor and pleasure to introduce my guest today on the Big Boss Show, Dr. Asha de Vos. Good morning, doctor.
Good morning.
How are you?
I'm awesome. Thank you.
Okay. First question. Is this a very early day for you or usually a very early morning bird?
No, I'm a morning person. I'm usually up at about 4:30 or 5 in the morning. I get up because I do sports almost every morning, and so it's sort of my Asha time, which I think everybody needs a little bit of your own time. So I get up early, I head out, either I'm running on the streets of Colombo at like some ridiculous hour, or either alone or with friends, and or I go for my swims.
Very active morning. But what's the usual wake-up time?
Like 4:30 or 5?
4:35.
Yeah, I like to be up before the sun, and I like to see the world rise. That's why I like to.
So you have a nice view in your house where you can look at that.
Yeah, or like out of the balcony, I just watch, how and also when I'm running, I start usually when it's darker, and then I'll watch, the light come in and people like start to wake up and the day start to begin.
How long are you running now? 4:30 you wake up and then what?
So, no, I don't run. I mean, I get up and then I have to do a bunch of things. I potter around and all of that. But I run for about an hour in the morning. Right. But one of the things I love to do also is take my mum for walks.
Nice.
So that's something I do as well. And we usually leave for those at about 5:45. So just, as it's still dark and it's just about to get light, it's a perfect time to be out.
And you enjoy those mother-daughter conversations in the morning?
Love it. I mean, I love my parents, so I think everybody's pretty aware of that.
We will talk about all of that, your parents, their influence on you. I want to get to, before we get into too deep about your career, I just want to ask you, what exactly are you working on right now? And tell us a little bit about that project.
Oh, wow. Okay. So I run a non-profit called Ocean Swell.
Yes.
It's a marine conservation research and education organization. So we do stuff, the long-term research we've been doing on blue whales, trying to protect them better, trying to understand them, trying to stop them from getting hit by ships, trying to make sure that we can manage the whale watching industry much better. But then on the other side, we also have discovered new species, which is really cool. And then we work with sperm whales, these amazing sperm whales that come to our waters.
Wow.
Also.
Is it the season now for them to come into our waters?
So we work at a specific time, mostly in April, when there are more bigger kind of groups of sperm whales, because we're interested in asking some conservation questions around that. So that's kind of all exciting. But then I do education stuff as well, because I think my work has sort of sparked a real excitement around the oceans, which is so cool for me. But that means I also am responsible for creating as many opportunities as I can for other people. So we actually have a really cool Ocean Heroes animation workshop coming up.
Yes, I was going to ask you about the workshop. Tell us more about this workshop.
So it's really exciting. It's actually limited to 20 kids aged 10 to 15, and what we're going to do is, so I'll do a little bit of a talk around an interesting, exciting marine conservation topic. So there's a little bit of science there, but I'm working with two really cool animators and illustrators, Apsi Sumanasiri and Irushi Tenakon, and they're going to help us to work with these kids so that kids can use their creativity to sort of build a stop animation video and bring the story and the words that I said to life. So that's super exciting for me.
And this is 10 to 15 kids?
10 to 15.
And this is open to the public? Anyone can ask and register and stuff?
Yeah.
So tell us a way that they can register then.
So they have to email us at courses@oceanswell.org. If you go to our social media sites, either Facebook or Instagram.
Even your website has got the information?
Website, it's on there as events. All the information is out there. So spaces are filling really fast. We'd ask people to hurry up and kind of get in there. But I'm really excited because for me, one of the things that I I try to do is make, I think I like to create opportunities for people.
Okay.
And then I also want people to believe that they have an important and very, I want them to feel empowered to create change and to believe that you don't have to be a scientist to make that change. You don't have to be an adult to make that change. You can be who you are and make that change, and you have the power within you. And so the kinds of things I design are really catered to bring a diverse audience into the fray and allowing them to believe in themselves to also drive change for our oceans.
Right. I like the fact that you're brought in now. When you say 10, 15-year-old kids, when you talk about science, they'll be like, it's a turn off. But, it's your job, of course, to kind of, bring that in interesting. And I know the way you talk, it's so nice. It's like a story. But I like the fact that you brought in the whole stop animation part. Mm-hmm. So you're making kids something to learn, something, because, kids these days, video games, the closest to it where you can learn something is doing some animation, computer-related work. So marrying that with your education part, and I think kids will be there.
Yeah.
Now, our WhatsApp line is open through the show. You know the number, 07657000966. If you want more information about the Oceans Well activities and this workshop on this for kids, just let us know. Send us a message on WhatsApp. We'll give you all the information you need. But if you want to log in and check it out right now, go to the Oceans Well website, oceanswell.org. Is that it?
Perfect.
Right. That's it. Or just Google if you can't find out.
Yeah.
Now, we talked about the project. Now, let's go back to you as a child. Dr. Asha de Vos as a child. Tell us about your parents, because I found out that your father was an architect and your mom was a housewife, despite being qualified as a nurse and a midwife.
Wow, you've done your research.
Oh, yeah. You know how I come. I bring it. But tell us about your parents, because I couldn't find much about how they were. I know you love them and they're very inspirational, especially in your career. Tell us a little bit about how your father is like, what your mom is like, the dynamic between you. And are you an only child?
No. I have an older brother who's actually was always the more intelligent of the two of us.
Really?
But I was the hardworking one. Okay. But to be fair, my brother's an architect in London. And he's very successful. So I'm not going to,
Shout outs to your brother. What's his name?
Ashwin.
Yeah. Shout out to Ashwin.
And my nephew, Niam, who's like the love of my life.
Nice.
Yeah.
Okay. Tell us about your dad and your mom.
Yeah.
What did they do?
So my dad is an architect and a monument conservator. He's a pretty well-known figure, but luckily worked in a completely different field to me. Okay. So I never had to live under his amazing shadow, which I wouldn't envy for anyone. But so I'd say and my mom, she's a midwife and a nurse by training. She's not from Sri Lanka, so when she moved here, she sort of worked a little bit and then decided to bring up her kids and invest her time in looking after my brother and I, which I think is a huge privilege, and I definitely know that I benefited from the sacrifices she made.
Right.
So I think my privilege was, as a child growing up, I remember, when I was quite young, my mom turned to me once and she just said, when I want to make sure, she said, you're a girl and I want to make sure you stand on your own 2 feet. And I want to make sure that if we can educate any of the two of you, it'll be you, because I want to make sure that you can follow your path. And as a boy, the system is designed for a boy.
Boy will survive.
He'll survive. He'll figure it out. But, the system isn't catered for women and girls. So I remember, at that time I was like, what a weird thing to say. But now when I reflect on that, right, I realize the power of those words. Because what she was basically saying to me was, I don't view you as different. I think you have everything it takes to do what you have to do.
Right.
But society might view you differently just by virtue of your gender. Right. And I don't think that's fair. Right. So I think that gave me a certain amount of confidence. And then, of course, she had a partner in crime, my father, who, he's a South Asian male. And we know, it's a very different culture here where, in general, I think we don't value women the way we should as equals, right? But I come from a family where that was so important. My dad always said the only thing we can afford to give you is your education. And if you work hard, we'll make sure you get the best education you can get. And they stood true to that. And my parents brought us up in a very, very loving environment. Obviously, we're a very close family. But they also gave us the luxury of being curious.
Right.
They never told us to stop asking questions. They never told us my mother would say, don't talk back. But of course we always did, which is what made us, stronger characters, because we were allowed to actually argue our points. And my parents didn't feel like, because they were the parents, that
they were very open-minded, you would say.
Very, very open-minded, very, very supportive, very encouraging.
So you talk back to your parents? Huh?
I mean, and I'm not saying being rude, but, as kids, it's about,
asking questions. What is that? Why is that? Why is
this? And kind of trying to reason with stuff as well, right? So I think that was really, really important. And I think they kind of gave us a lot of space. We didn't grow up as a family that went to the beach. We didn't do traditional holidays like families. I mean, we never went on a holiday. We just followed my dad on his work. And my dad restored the golf fort and also the Jetavanaramya monastery complex, World Heritage Site. So we grew up in really incredible places in this country. My father always said you can learn something for everyone, so we never had any boundaries about who we got to play with when we went to these places or who we hung out with. We were brought up in the villages, running around, shoeless with other children. I mean, I had the most magical childhood, and I can only say that if not for my parents who maintained, do what you love and you'll do it well. If not for them, I would not be even an ounce of who I am today.
Without a doubt. I know you're very, very... there's a lot of gratitude when you talk about your parents in some of the other interviews as well. Okay, now that's all very nice and diplomatic and all of that. But how were you as a child? Were you a troublemaker, naughty? Did your parents have their moments where you just, raised hell? Did you do that?
So the thing is, my parents are listening right now, and the good thing is that they're listening, but they are not able to contribute to this conversation. So that's probably a positive for me right now. I'd say my advantage was that my brother was really naughty, so I think he kind of took the limelight a little bit away from me.
Okay.
I was a pretty quiet kid for about 3 years of my life, so that was clearly not a long time.
Okay.
But my brother and I are pretty tight. He was a huge influence on my life. He was just like Curious George. He wanted to know why about everything. And I think that sort of taught me to become a very curious mind. But we were very naughty as kids, no doubt. We had a great childhood. We used to spend all our time in the gardens climbing trees and, jumping off like crazy heights. I don't even know how we survived sometimes, but we did.
Lots of bruises, lots of cuts.
Lots of cuts, bruises. We grew up, we didn't have traditional pets. We had scorpions and grasshoppers and caterpillars in our bedroom, right? So obviously parents with very open-minded parents. In school, I'm sure, many of my teachers would love to contribute to this conversation as well. I was definitely... troublemaker sounds terrible, but I think I was just one of the naughty kids in school.
Right, we'll get to that school part in a bit. Now, I also wanted to talk about your brother. You said he's a big influence in your life.
Yeah.
At a very young age, how did that influence come about? Is it because he's the one who paved the path in terms of curiosity and you went along and you learned stuff, or is there anything that you learned from him?
So, my brother, I think I always say he was one of those kids who was an active participant in the world and not just a passive recipient of the world. And that's how I like to describe him as a child, because he genuinely did ask a lot of questions about why and how. And he wasn't just like, okay, I'll just take it as it comes. And I think that showed me the importance of also kind of questioning things. He was an influence because, he was my brother. He taught me to climb trees. He taught me to do all the stuff that I did. I was very influenced by him as a kid. We would fight all the time.
I was going to ask you about that.
Oh my gosh,
fights also
for sure. But we loved each other to death. We still do.
Yeah.
And we still have very big personality similarities, but also very big differences.
Right.
So, if anybody who knows us will say the way we talk, the way we gesticulate is exactly the same, arms flailing all the time.
Really?
But and some things we talk about and will be very similar, but there are some topics that we don't even address because we know we're so poles apart. But I think that's a healthy relationship.
That's wonderful. That's like an enabling environment for
Very.
you to be whoever you want to be. That's the kind of parents that when you describe an enabling environment, that would be pretty close, no?
Yeah, very
Okay.
much.
We are talking to Dr. Asha de Vos today. We spoke about her childhood, how she grew up, and the influences, her father, a mom, and a strong mother, I must add.
Yes.
Good
An
values.
amazing
Fantastic.
mother.
And a good brother also.
Yeah,
And a good
same.
father also.
Yeah.
And we'll be
I
talking
love
more
it.
about her. Now, when we are back, we're going to be talking to her about her school days. She went to ladies' college, mind you. Woohoo! I love ladies' college, man.
So
But anyway, we'll be talking about that, her time, and we'll get into her marine conservation efforts as well, her work with Oceans Well, and the Blue Whale Project. All of that coming up. Stay tuned to The Big Boss Show. We'll be right back. I was 10,000 Maniacs giving you Because the Night. Now, all the songs you'll be hearing today are, yes.
Applause.
Right. So, all the songs we'll be hearing today on the show are personally selected by Dr. Asha de Vos. So, every song for you said, most of them, you have some meaning. Anything about this particular track? Why you chose this?
So this track is actually one of the songs that when I need a little bit of a, like a a bit of a rush.
Okay.
It's one of those songs I just put on my headphones and I play super loud, and I feel like I'm in a stadium surrounded by all these people, and there's a lot of power in the song. So I just enjoy it for that.
Nice. More of her songs coming up on the show, of course. It's 9:24. Hopefully having a lovely Saturday morning. You should be tuned in right now because we are talking to a very, very interesting and inspiring individual, and we were talking about the project she was into, and we just spoke about her parents as well. Now schooling career. You went to the best girls' school out there in Colombo, Ladies College. We love.
I have
Ladies
not
College.
paid him to say that, by the way.
Huh?
I have not paid him to say that.
No.
Just Shapik, I want to put that up.
My first girlfriends are second girlfriends from Ladies College, so full on. I love ladies. But anyway, if you go back to school and you ask one of your teachers, how was Asha like? What kind of student she was? Was she naughty? Was she good? What would they say? Or what do you think they would say?
No, I would say, and I'll be honest, I'm sure I was a handful. There's no doubt. I was naughty. I have a bunch of friends who are still friends from that time, and we still laugh about all the things we used to do. We were just naughty. It was very mischievous fun. We were always playing pranks. I was always on trees or at the swimming pool. I'm a swimmer and a water polo player. So like we had this wildly fun school time, and it was, to me, like, I will say that I loved school. I mean, I would cut school only if I was deathly ill. So I loved school that much. And it was because I feel like LC at the time especially was also a very enabling environment. It was very much about, do your best at school, do your best in your sports, and be an all-rounder. And I think because of that, I never felt pressure, to go to school because I had to study or whatever. It just felt like I was going to a space of like learning and enjoyment and being with people I loved and just spending the whole day just doing fun stuff. And it was a really great time of my life.
You mentioned that you did swimming and water polo.
Yeah, those
you
were my
never
main
did any land sports?
No, I did. I was high jump champion in school under 11. I was probably the shortest person jumping, but I still jumped. So not bad. I actually was in the school athletics team for a little while, but then I focused on swimming more, so I kind of had to sacrifice. Yeah.
Sports, fantastic. Education, studies?
So that's a very great question, which I love to talk about actually, because I wasn't a prize winner.
Okay.
I mean, I won prizes in sports all the time. I didn't win a single academic prize through my entire school career.
Okay.
And in many ways, I'm really proud of that because, I'll tell you why. Because I still have managed to do the things I've done.
Yes, absolutely.
Right? And so what I want people to realize is, school is not the be-all and end-all of life. Just because you won a prize in school doesn't mean you're going to have a successful career. Just because you didn't win a prize in school doesn't mean you're going to be a failure. I want people to realize that. That's like 14 years of your life. My gosh, we live into our 80s, 90s, 100s, right? So don't feel like that's your like benchmark for success or failure. I love to tell that story to people because, I mean, I recently actually spoke at the Ladies College Prize Giving in December.
How was that going back to school?
I'll tell you, it was one of the pinnacles of my career, and I've had lots of pinnacles, but this was like such a special moment. And also the fact that I had to open with a confession that I'd never crossed that stage on prize giving night was a pretty big deal for me. But I think it was meaningful because I think the point is we have to learn to, cheer for every single child out there.
Of course, without
regardless. We can't imagine just because they didn't come first in class or just because they didn't win the class prize that they're not going to make it in life. Gosh, school doesn't test you for all the amazing things that happen out in your world after you're 18.
Of course. And also, Dr. Asha, would you agree that not every student has the same playing field?
Absolutely. I mean, academics are designed for a particular type of personality.
Right.
I know for a fact the style of education that we have in Sri Lanka didn't work for me. There's a lot of memorization of stuff and regurgitation, and that's not the way I work. I'm a process learner. I have to sit and study and understand the whole process before I can actually talk about it. And so the school systems that we have don't encourage for that. And so that doesn't mean I was going to fail. And today, I have a PhD. I have what I would consider a very successful academic career, despite never winning an academic prize. And I want parents who might be listening right now to bear that in mind. I mean, and I had the pleasure of also, I didn't take tuition in school. I had a couple of months before O-levels, didn't have any in A-levels, because I think my parents also believed in the value of that time that I spent outside exploring the world, climbing trees, watching butterflies, come out of caterpillars. All of that was part of my learning process and not restricting.
Don't you think that the parents also played a role in that? Because, it all sounds nice, but then your mom and dad will be like, studies. I'll stop because my dad stopped my basketball when I was in grade 10. Now it's O-level time. Stop rugby, stop basketball. 1 year, nothing. And I had to go full study and do that. And I still got 6A, 2B, but he was giving me a nice year full. Why did you get 8 A's? Now, when you have parents like that, what would your message to kids like that?
No, so let me tell you, my parents never asked me to stop anything. When I got my O-level results, it was really funny. I didn't even know O-level results had come out that day. I happened to be in school too and help with some play practice. My whole batch was there and I'm thinking, wow, this is interesting. Walk in, I had a teacher who came and she was really excited. And she's like, and she dragged me to the notice board. And she says, I said, hey, miss, like, what's happening? Like, she was so, excited and wound up. And she's like, you didn't fail. Which, of course, was crazy because I never failed. I wasn't a bad student. I was just a student who didn't win the class prize, right? So, whatever. I got 6 D's, 2 C's in the end, whatever. And that's irrelevant because nobody today asks me what my O-level results were. No one really cares. Nobody cares.
At that time, big deal for us. Now, no one cares.
But, I called my father immediately because everybody was doing this. So, it felt right. So, I called my dad and I said, Tati, I got my O-level results. He said, okay, what did you get? I said 6-2. He said, okay, what were the 6 and the 2 for? I told him and he said, okay, bye, see you later. And he put the phone down. I was like, awesome, right? Because
awesome.
They just had, through my life, all my parents asked me was, do your best, right? So let me just say that when you ask your child, right, when my parents used to ask me, did you do your best? Okay, I had the choice of telling the truth or a lie. Right? And I would always want to tell the truth. So therefore, I would always do my best. So I could say, yes, I did my best, right? Now, my best didn't necessarily mean that I got 100%. But that was my best. And my parents trusted me to know what my best was.
Absolutely.
And that was really helpful, I think.
Yeah, that's something that parents these days have to kind of get into. That's fantastic the way you put it across. Now, on a lighter note, now we were talking about studies and prizes and sports. Have you ever been caught in a mischief? Like in school, did you get punished for something? Were you told to kneel down? And what would the naughty things you would have done in school?
So naughty things were like trying to escape class to go and eat chocolate cake in the next class, and then getting caught by a teacher.
Never got into fights.
No, are you mad? I don't know if that even happens in girls' schools. To be fair, no.
That's such a boys' school thing to ask.
Maybe I don't know because we didn't have fights. I mean, we were always for us, life was about eating chocolate cake and just hanging out and just. I'm literally climbing trees and stealing mangoes off the mango tree. So I used to get chased by teachers for that.
Okay.
But there were mangoes. So what do you do with mangoes if not pluck them, right? So, but nothing bad, I would say, just I got punished literally one time for going to the next classroom, saying I need to go to the bathroom, going to the next classroom, and then going to the next classroom to eat cake. Like that. But things like that. But,
Okay. Now, they say men have a lot of friends in life and those friends come and go. But women have few, but they hold on to their childhood friendships for life. Would you agree with that statement? And if so, who are your closest friends from school? Do you still keep in touch with them?
Yeah, my gosh. I have friends that I've had since I was 4 years old. And, I don't know. I mean, I can't speak for men, so I can't really comment on what kind of relationships men have. But
I can say we will have friends all the time. We'll be crowded all the time. But our friend circle moves. It changes time to time. If you go to work, the friend circle. But school friends, you'll have a few. But I've noticed that girls, that friendship at a very young age, till death.
We have.
Would you agree? Is that
we have a pretty tight network of friends. I would say even I have my really close friends from school, but then my batch is also really close, right? So we tend to meet if someone comes from abroad, or we all gather to have a meal with that person, whatever. So it's something. These are people you shared a chunk of your life with, and I feel like we probably know each other better than some people's partners might, just by virtue of the fact that we grew up together. We saw each other 8 hours a day or whatever, 5 days a week, and we saw people through their roughest times and their best times during that period, and there's something special. But I definitely have very, very close friends from school that I some of my closest friends today. Actually, the next song that I have on the list is actually related to some of my friends who I grew up with in school.
Nice. We'll before we play the song, we'll talk about that a little bit.
Yeah.
But now you went to ladies' college,
Yeah.
Now. And you're very happy when I said it's the best girls' school.
I'm so biased.
You can make this honest answer or whatever the question is. Why is ladies the best girls' school? And what sets you apart from other girls' schools?
Okay, that's a loaded question. I'm going to say that I will say that for me, why I think ladies was the best for me was because it was an enabling environment that didn't put pressure on me to be either an academic or an athlete or, to choose, but it gave me the option to be all of that. And it taught me how to be a very whole person. So that's why I believe, and I don't know what the other schools are like, so I can't comment, but I will say that definitely for me, ladies college was the best option. And my point also is that I picked my own school, which people don't know, and I think it's such a fun fact because my brother was at nursery at Bishop's.
Okay.
And I went to pick him up, and I was a little unimpressed with their playground at the time. And I went to pick up another friend at ladies college, and I liked the monkey bars. So I turned to my parents at the age of 3, and I said, that's the school I want to go to. And so my parents were like, sure, because my mom, she doesn't come from a long line of anything because she's not from Sri Lanka. So she was like, okay, if that's where you want to go, we'll try to get you in. And if you get in, you get in. So
and you got in.
I got in, and I picked my own school.
Well done. Now, best boys' school.
I can't. I say St. Thomas only because my father's from St. Thomas's and my father's like a pillar of that school. So that's my bias once again.
Okay,
but I don't know if it's the best school or not. I just think it gave me my father. So that's the most important thing.
Now, schooling career and your involvement in sports, of course, which mainly water related. But at what point did you realize that marine biology was your thing? Was there a person influencing you, or a particular event, or was it? What inspired you? So
I think the whole marine biology thing was a long-term sort of organic thing. From the time I was very young, I was exposed to National Geographic magazines and all these incredible people doing amazing things, and I would flip through the pages as a 6-year-old and think, I want to go where no one else will ever go and see things no one else will ever see, being like these people, right? And so that was sort of where it sparked. And I remember thinking I wanted to be an adventurous scientist because I could be do all these, I could do science, but also it'd be really cool, right? That's how it sort of felt in my head. And as I grew up, as I said, my parents aren't like, beach-going family. Nobody in my family really appreciates swimming. They appreciate water now because, of course, my career. So we were just brought up with that curiosity and sort of that like joy for life and like, believing that there was so much to learn and to experience in this life that we have. And so I think my parents would expose us to people, and so I used to go to Otters back in the day.
I want to bring that up as well. I read somewhere that you have spoken to Mr. Arthur C. Clarke.
Yeah, so he used to come to Otters. He used to play table tennis there almost every day. And so I was introduced to him as a child, and he would, he moved to Sri Lanka to dive around our island and the wrecks and stuff. And so he would sit and just tell me stories about his experiences. And there's one particular story I always repeat, but I think it was probably something that really piqued my interest. And he said, I was on this dive and there was this giant skin that went past. And I said, oh, what was it? And he goes, I don't know, but it was brown. And I said, okay, like tell me more. And he goes, it was huge, and it kept going and going, and it was brown, and it was just this immense thing. And I was like, wow, like what, like, so what was it? I was on the edge of my seat. And he goes, I don't know, because I had to end my dive at that point. And I was like, don't be silly, right? So he sort of left me hanging there. And I think I sometimes wonder if he just did that to kind of pique my interest, or if there was genuinely something there. But, so those were the kind of experiences that I sort of were influenced by. And my love for water meant that by the time I was 18, I was applying to go to university to be a marine biologist. So I was very resolute in that path. And now at that point, my parents were like, do what you love, you'll do it well. So, yes, you want to be a marine biologist? Fine. By all
so
means,
they were very open with that.
My parents were
cool.
At
what age did this incident happen with Mr. Arthur C.
Clarke? Probably when I was 13, 14. So very younger. Yeah, so younger. But like, my parents were like, cool, just do whatever you want, because we, basically they were telling me, we trust that you know what you want for your life, right? We're not going to tell you what to do with your life. It's your life. You do what you think is important. And I remember that, but everybody else around was like, Ane, what are you going to do? There's no scope in this country. And I was really confused, because I was like, this is an island. To me, it really feels like I'm the only person who knows what kind of career we need in this island.
But I guess that concern comes from in terms of income.
Some of it income too, and possibly also just the fact that it didn't exist as a career in Sri Lanka. So people, now in hindsight, I know there was a lot of concern, and they were probably like, you go abroad, you'll study, and you'll come back and you'll be disappointed because you can't do what you want to do. Or you'll have to go abroad and not come back. And maybe a lot of people thought that was my choice, which it never was. Like, I was always coming home. And I think I joke now and I say maybe people thought I was going to study in university and become a fisherwoman because that was the only career they could associate with the ocean, right? So it's not, it's just the sense that people, it was such a great unknown. And I always tell my parents this also. I said maybe they didn't fully know what a marine biologist did too, just because it wasn't a field they were exposed to, but they kind of, I guess, whatever I told them allowed them to believe that it was an honest career, which is all that really matters in life. And if I was going to give anything a shot, clearly that's what I was going to give a shot. And I luckily, I made it in the field enough to say that it's a worthwhile career to take and to kind of go down. So.
So that's the most important thing. A lot of people don't know exactly what they do. Even at their 30s, they don't know what they want to do in their life. So you had that, I guess you were very lucky in that way, because at 13, 14, meeting Arthur C. Clarke, reading all these Nat Geo magazines, and following your dream at a very young age. When you said that at that age, easy, then you know where your life's going to go.
Yeah, but you know what?
But did you have that understanding, that maturity, that this is, at that age itself, this is it?
So it was organic, right? Like I was but definitely by 18, I was like, that's the path.
Right.
But what I like to point out there is that I think we all have dreams, but we choose whether we want to follow them or not, right? So I don't know. So I always say luck is what you create every day by the decisions you make, right? And I think I made decisions that took me closer and closer to the point where I could do what I wanted to do. I have met a lot of people who said, oh, I wanted to be a marine biologist too. And I always say, oh, so why didn't you go down that path? And many people will say, I didn't think I could make money, or I couldn't, kind of mostly reasons like that. And I think it helps that that's not what I was driven by. I was driven genuinely by a desire to change the world, and to make sure I'm giving back and leaving the place a better place than I found it. And so for me, it was very easy to go down that path.
Fantastic.
And I think we just have to remember that it's you create your luck, right? So you make that decision, and you can choose to stay on that path of your dream, or you can veer off. And if you veer off, you take responsibility for that.
Of course, responsibility of your own actions, and you got to follow your dream.
Yeah.
That's what basically you're saying. Now, I want to come into Scotland, your degree. Now, you did your undergraduate studies in marine and environmental biology at the University of St Andrews in Fife, Scotland. Is that how you say it?
Yeah.
Now, was it your first time going abroad, or?
To live, yes. I traveled a fair bit because my mom's side of the family lives in Canada, so I had gone to see them a fair bit as a kid. But I was 18 and straight out of a, ladies' college, straight out of a local school, going abroad, and for the first time living on my own.
Wow.
Yeah.
At that age, huh?
Yeah, at that age. And, kudos to my parents for, being like, goodness, God, I can't imagine, being parting from your child, but it's a big sacrifice, I think, for a parent to make sure that your education is at its finest. And of course, Scotland, it's a beautiful place, but it's like cold and wet and dreary. But it was an amazing experience. St Andrews is one of the best schools in the world to do marine biology.
Okay.
I was very, very lucky to get in. I was taught by some of the most amazing, inspiring people who are incredibly passionate about the work they do around, especially with marine mammals, so whales, dolphins, seals, sea lions, those kinds of species, which is clearly the path I'm also on. And I also was really lucky because my best friend that I met in the first few days was from Scotland, and her mom basically took me in as her other daughter, and she lived a few hours away, so I always felt I had family.
That was very nice.
Yeah,
that's very important, because I lived abroad as well, and you had to you miss home.
Yeah.
And you miss your mom's cooking, and it's not just the cooking, just the fact that mom's around.
Yeah.
So that's nice. That's very nice.
Really nice. It made a huge difference.
But I'll bring up an experience for you. Bring up a thing that you spoke about again on one of these TED Talks I listened. About your self-diagnosed phonophobia. And you worked in a call center to get rid of it. Tell us more details, please.
Oh my God. I have self-diagnosed phonophobia. If anyone is wondering what that is, it means I don't really like talking on the phone. And it's just something that I've always had.
Still?
Which is really, I do take calls. It's not that I don't.
Okay.
But that's not my preferred mode of communication, let's say.
What is?
I
Email.
mean, it just depends. Email is, I think it's a much more professional space to have communication. I like things being documented as well, so that's great.
But why do you say self-diagnosed? When did you figure out that you have a fear?
I don't know, because from the time I was young, I hated answering the phone. I never took,
But that's like any girl would say that. No,
I don't know.
You're like, wait,
no,
anyone.
no, anyone. Like I'm not a kid who's ever hung on the phone for any reason, nothing. And so when I was in undergrad, one thing is I wanted to make a little bit of money. The other thing was the only thing that was available was working in this university call center.
Okay, and what did the call center do in a university?
So it was to raise like donations for the university.
Okay, like that.
So
okay.
So I did this job, and it was kind of nuts because I was like, maybe this will cure me, but it didn't. But I was successful at raising funds for the university, but yeah, I still have phobia.
So the call center experience didn't really work.
No,
Made some cash, but didn't get rid of the phobia.
Yeah.
Now, from St. Andrews to, wow, this was my dream back then. I had to settle for Staffordshire, but you went to Oxford for your masters. How was your experience at one of the world's best university?
It was really one of the best experiences you can have. I did my master's there. It was just one of the most highly sought out master's programs at the time in the world. And so there was 16 of us.
Wow.
And, today my classmates were very close. It's a pretty small class. So
Were you the only Sri Lankan also?
I was the only Sri Lankan.
Wow,
Yeah.
well done.
Thank you. But, my friends are like, professors in big universities now. They're doctors in big institutions all across the globe. So, people who've really like shone in the world.
Wow.
Oxford is amazing. It's a beautiful place to live. I mean, St. Andrews is also very beautiful, just to add that. But Oxford, obviously, when you walk through, you think, wow, like, you think about the people who've passed on those same cobblestone streets before you, and you think that's kind of nuts, And so it was a very special experience.
But I want to bring up now, you were talking about this now. Your portrait's there in Lincoln College. You're the first Sri Lankan woman to have your portrait hung at Oxford, celebrating 40 years at the time of admitting women into Lincoln College.
Yeah.
And I read about it was a huge selection process. There were so many women they were considering. And what was it like when you got to know that you were one of the selected? I
will not lie, I was so floored. It probably is like the highest pinnacle of my life.
Right.
Particularly, I feel like I'm still young, so I feel like to have that recognition, and I guess they picked women they felt could inspire that next generation of anybody to believe and to drive and to push boundaries. And to think that I fell into that category is quite a big deal. And to also know that my portrait will forever be hung in the oldest university in the English-speaking world is like it's a huge deal.
It's a big deal. So, come on, and we are just so proud. When I read that, I was so proud as a Sri Lankan to have that there. So well done on that one. Now we're going to be talking a little bit more on school, and then we're going to go in for a small break, of course. And we had to talk about the track that we're going to play and why it's special about the school friend you were going to share a memory. Now from England, you move all the way down under for your doctorate. Now, what was your doctorate on, and how significant? Now, usually you pick a topic and you research on it. No, that's what the PhD is about. So, how significant is your research for future students of this topic, and for us, for the public in general? What was the doctorate about?
Okay, so what can I just like flip back to between my undergrad and my masters? So in between my undergrad and my masters, I had this degree after my undergrad in marine biology, and I was like, okay, like I want to know how to use this degree, right? There's a lot of theory. Okay. So then I decided to take time out to. I don't believe in rushing between degrees. That's another thing. But I took time out to try to get some practical experience. So I lived in New Zealand for about 6 months. I worked on research projects to get down and dirty with the field, to be able to see like what does marine biology actually mean. And while I was there, I learned about this whale research vessel that was circumnavigating the globe. Okay. And it was stopping in the Maldives and Sri Lanka. And so...
Is this the one where you have to write letters every day?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, tell us the story.
That's exactly what had happened. So I heard about this vessel, and I was like, wow, there's this research vessel going to Sri Lanka. I need to figure out how to get on. And so this is I was living in New Zealand in a tent and using like, internet cafes that most of this audience may not even know what an internet
cafe is. They had net cafes also?
Yeah, they had.
Very popular early 2000s in Sri Lanka?
This was, early 2002, yeah. So I had not much money. I was spending that little bit of money to go and write emails. I learned about this vessel coming to Sri Lanka, and I basically wrote to the CEO and I said, can you let me on? And they were like, sorry, we've got people already lined up. And I was like, this is nuts. There are no Sri Lankans. I know of who want to go into a field related to marine mammals and marine biology, and just give me a chance, and they were like, and I said, look, you're coming to Sri Lanka, you should really make space for Sri Lankans if you're coming to this country.
Yeah.
And so it became a negotiation process for 3 months. I wrote to them every single day, but I
Persistent.
negotiated.
Very persistent.
But I was also sure not to like basically be demanding. I wasn't telling them, they should do it, because I was like, I'll do anything. And so they finally let me on. They said, fine, if you can be in the Maldives in 24 hours, we'll give you 2 weeks here. Little did they know I was going to do that. So I packed my bags. I left New Zealand, came to Sri Lanka, packed another bag, went to Maldives, was there within 24 hours. And they were like, oh my gosh, you're here. Amazing. I was like, surprise. And they said, okay, fine. You'll be the deckhand. And for those of you who don't know, a deckhand is a person who basically cleans toilets and polishes brass.
What? Really?
So that's where it all started. And I was like, I don't care. Like, I just need to be on this vessel.
Right.
Because once I'm on the vessel, you can't really throw me out mid-sea. And I will just prove to you that I have the capacity to become a scientist. And so my beginnings really are from like polishing glass and cleaning toilets. Nothing is beyond me, for me, to be quite honest. And so I think that's important for kids these days to also remember that, don't go in looking for a job at the highest level. You have to work your way through the system.
Just get in, get
in,
and then
then
make it big.
Work hard and prove yourself, right? So I worked really hard. And then they said, okay, fine, you're great. We think you work hard and you'll be a great addition to the team. We'll upgrade you to science intern and deckhand. So I was cleaning toilets, but also doing some science.
Sure.
I know, I was really proud. And then I stayed on for the duration in Sri Lanka, right? So when I was working in Sri Lanka, that's when I first encountered the blue whales. And I had this eureka moment around a floating pile of whale poop, which is my famous story. And that inspired me to sort of launch the Sri Lankan Blue Whale Project. So the reason I went back here, and I'll fast forward to to being in Perth at University of Western Australia doing my PhD. My PhD was in oceanography and marine mammal research. And I was really interested, having seen these whales. I was like, it's really interesting because normally blue whales will go to cold waters to feed.
Okay.
And they only come to warm waters like, our tropical waters just to breed and to have babies. And when I saw the pile of whale poop around our waters, I realized, that's a sign of animals feeding. So I was like, well, this is weird. That means it's also feeding in these warm waters. And so for me, that was like a eureka moment. I was like, these whales here are like breaking the rules that we had, built. So they're not going all that way to eat. They're just eating here, right? That's what I found. And so I wanted to understand how the environment influenced these animals and their behaviors. And so that's why I went into oceanography. And oceanography is more the physical side of the oceans, like things like how does the water circulate, and what are the current patterns, how are they driven by winds. So it's a very different sort of area in the marine sciences. And so I was really interested in the bigger picture, like why are these whales in Sri Lanka throughout the year? What's influencing them to stay? Is there enough food? And that was really what I dedicated, that 3.5 year period to. And it is significant because it shows us that the waters around Sri Lanka are more productive than we would expect for warm waters in this part of the world, because we have this unique monsoon phenomenon that you don't get anywhere else in the world, right? And so the way the currents move and how they interact with the bottom of the ocean floor means that there's more food in this area, trapped in these areas, than in a similar latitude. And so it is significant because it also shows us how unique Sri Lanka is, what an amazing position we're in, and the fact that there's a lot of undiscovered species out there that that's what I want to do, is to help discover them.
Yeah, and I also, when you were explaining that, I was thinking it's also an opportunity for people outside Sri Lanka who have more resources to kind of understand this phenomenon that's happening, which is very, very uncommon, you would say, and then for them to come here and research like that.
Okay, wait.
Has that actually driven people? I want
to pause you on that, because you know what? So that's the stuff that really bugs me. So there's this concept called parachute science that I fight all the time, very vocally. And that is this idea that people from outside come into our countries like ours, which are the developing countries as they label them, do research and just leave. And they don't build the capacity locally. They don't invest in people here. They don't invest in anything, but they just kind of take all they go and they get all the glory for it. And that's something that I think really needs to stop, because I believe that in our countries we have incredible talent. We have amazing students. We have people who have completely all the capacity we need. We just need to create that opportunity.
Without a doubt. Even, I think your next generation of marine biology, Vinuri Silva is there.
Yeah,
talking about microplastics in fish and wastage and stuff.
Exactly.
Yes.
So we have that capacity. We just need to learn how to create opportunity. And so I do encourage collaboration. I have lots of amazing collaborations. I have an amazing network of collaborators and people that I work with across the world. But with Oceanswell, how we do it is we bring in people to train our students, our local researchers, and those people remain part of the projects, but they don't come and do the work, right? So they're not the face of the project, because why should our resources be studied by other people?
We need to get something in return too.
Yeah,
right?
and if we constantly allow people to come and go, we don't build that, that base of, local capacity, which means that if we need to do that sort of research again, we again are dependent on outsiders, which we don't have to be. And right now, I will say, and I know my students listening, I have a research assistant who started working with us on a project last year during his undergraduate at Ocean University. He did an excellent job. I just hired him at Oceanswell. His name is Isur, and I'm giving him a shout out because he's an example. But the thing is, he came to me, and the only thing I said to him is, I said, Isur, I don't care what you do on that project, but just work hard. And he worked hard. And if there are people like that who are passionate, who will work hard, who will give it everything they've got, and realize that these are long-term goals we're working towards, I will invest 100% in them, right? So
wonderful. He's
one of those people, and I want him to be seen as an example by any other students who want to work in this field.
Hey, one of these days we will interview him too.
Yeah? I would say yes.
Okay,
it's great.
We'll talk about Oceanswell later as well. We're going to be talking a little bit in detail, and I know you're hiring also.
Yes.
So let this be a hiring call as well on the show. So I'll do that. Now, when we're back, we are talking to Dr. Asha de Vos. Now, she's very talkative, but hey, every story she says is very interesting. And I'm telling you right now, time is 9:54. The show is supposed to end at 10:30. It's not going to be. It's not going to be.
I'm trapped.
And it's going to be fun. I'm just telling you, there's so much things to learn. I'm getting all your messages. Send in your messages. If there's anything, a question, all of that, of course, I'll be taking them in. I'll be screening them through. And when we are back, we're going to have a very interesting conversation with Dr. Asha de Vos. She defies the law that Albert Einstein said.
Yeah.
Okay, we'll tell you more about that. She basically said in a speech at a TED Talk, Albert Einstein was wrong. We'll get into that a little bit later, but now we're going to be playing this particular song. Now, tell us the story and your school friend.
Okay, so it's actually a bunch of school friends. We're going to play a song, Frankie, and I think if any of the girls are listening, they'll know why. At school, we actually choreographed a dance to this, and it was like this thing that we did over and over and over again in the interval. And it's something that now, whenever we hear this song, we almost break out into these dance moves,
really?
which is a bit good, but it's really cute. And so it's something that brought us together because we spent so many hours practicing this dance for no other audience except ourselves.
Yes. So do you all have these batch meetups and you all do this?
We break out into a few moves, but we realize that maybe, we're not as cool as we were when we were young, so I suppose we let it slide. But yeah, this is dedicated to the girls who danced to Frankie with me.
All right, this is Sister Sledge giving you Frankie. Hey, welcome back to the Big Boss Show, and we are talking to Dr. Asha de Vos, of course. Am I pronouncing that surname right?
Yeah,
de Vos.
absolutely.
Fantastic. Yeah. Okay, we're talking so many things about her. I'm learning so many things from her as well. She's telling stories, and it's so interesting. Now I know why you're a TED Senior Fellow. You love to talk, and it's so inspiring. I was just, that 14 minutes of that video that I looked at from the TED Talk just flew by. You were saying it in such a nice way from that speech. Okay. Before that, I got the seal of approval from Mama Bear, of course. What has she said about me on the show?
She said you've done your research and you're excited, so she thinks you're doing a good job.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Mama. That was very sweet of you. Now, on that TED Talk, I'll give you the premise for the people who are listening out there. Albert Einstein once said, "A person who has not made his great contribution to science before the age of 30 will never do so." Now, he also backed it up by, figuring out the very famous E = MC squared by that age, and he, cited as an evidence. Now, you have a particular story about this quote. You discussed in that speech that I was talking about, the TEDx talk. Can you tell us what this quote meant to you, and why you ended up in that speech saying that he was wrong? And there was some research done also that it's somewhere around mid-30s to early 40s where actually it peaks.
Yeah.
Tell us the story about this quote.
Okay, so I'll be honest, I did this talk about 6 years ago, so I don't remember the details of it, and I've done thousands since.
I can remind you if you want.
By all means, it sounds like you've been doing your research recently, and I love this. I love this. But, I mean, I guess the whole gist of it is when I remember hearing this quote, actually when I was working on that whale research vessel that I mentioned in my, early 20s, and there was a a young senior scientist on board, and he turned around and he says, yeah, you know, if you're making any discoveries, you have to, you know, as Einstein said, you have to make it, you know, by your 30s, or you've missed your opportunity. And I just remember just being so struck by that, you know, and this thinking, how am I going to do that, right? Like, I was like already coming into my mid-20s, and I didn't feel like I had established this career that I wanted to go down. And I, you know, coming from Sri Lanka, I was like building this whole new career path, you know, that didn't exist before. And I was like, how am I going to, like, you know, make a discovery and do all these amazing things, and then 30. And then I was like, but then what am I going to do the rest of my life if I'm done it by 30? And I was like, this is the most absurd thing I've ever heard, right?
Good.
So when I got the opportunity to do this particular TEDx talk, actually, and I think it was in Monterey in California, I thought to myself, like, this is something that I'd like to talk about, because I don't want people to think that I don't want people to think life ends at school. I don't want people to think that life ends at 30. And I want to sort of kind of, you know, buffer that my argument with a little bit of facts. And so that's why I went and did some research, and I found that, you know, most people are, you know, doing great things in their late 30s to 40s. Also the fact that, you know, there are certain fields that are designed to, you know, enable that very early discovery. So fields like maths or physics, where it's very you know, number oriented, very those are certain fields that you can actually progress much faster and come up with discoveries earlier on in life.
Would you say it's because if you're maths, you just sit and work out equations?
Yeah, and I
yours
think
is more exploring and learning. What would you say?
Yeah, and I think the argument is that there, you know, since like, you know, biology and stuff, there's a foundation of knowledge that you have to build before you can get to the point where you're suddenly starting to do more, right? I think in maths there's it's not quite the same, and I think that's what the argument is. And to me, like, I feel like if I hadn't done like all those years of sort of learning and learning around the subject, and then learning around my country, and then all of this, if I didn't have all those foundations, I wouldn't know if I was making a discovery or not. And I think, you know, that's what we have to remember. And so for me, and also, like, my question is, like, so if you discover at 30, then what do you do? Sleep for the rest of your life until, like, it's time to go? Like, that doesn't make any sense. So
I think your argument would be, it's an ongoing thing. Yeah. You know, there's no age.
It never ends.
Never ends, right?
No, and I still think that I have so much to do for the planet, right? And I mean, I passed the 30 mark. I'm 30 plus, and so certainly I'm like, you know, but I don't think I've had my greatest moment yet, and that's okay for me, because it keeps me excited about what I can do tomorrow. And it doesn't, you know, I'm not resting on my laurels. I'm like, no, there's more out there. There's more to be done, and I want to be able to do it, and I'm going to keep going until I get that done, whatever that is.
We wish you all the very best, and
Thank
I know that your story is so inspirational. Now, I was very honest with you earlier as well. I didn't know anything about what you were doing. Only when I did this research for the show only, I learned so many new things, of course. So, great job.
Thank you.
Now, you were talking about whale poo and how your research and how you're inspired by all of that. Now, the Blue Whale Project is something you started in 2008, focusing on the whales. Now, you made a very interesting statement that whale poo is very important for our survival.
Yes.
What does that mean, and why? Why is that very important?
Yeah, and so thank you for bringing it up, because in some places in the world I'm known as whale poo girl, and I'm very proud of it. So
Ocean girl to whale poo girl.
I'm like, my gosh, yes, that's me.
I saw your Twitter feed. You still have it as Ocean Girl, I think.
Somewhere there. But so whale poop is this amazing magical thing, right?
Okay.
We think about it as a waste product. You know, most people will say that's gross.
Is that the red thing?
Yeah, it's so beautiful. That's my first thing. Is it's beautiful brick red color.
I thought it was flowers when I looked at the picture.
Well, it doesn't smell like flowers, let's say, right? Okay. But so blue whale poo is particularly beautiful, and you know, since I work with blue whales, I'm pretty lucky. I get to work with beautiful poo as well. Actually, the poo is the color of this mic right now. It's exactly this
something
color.
Like a scarlet red.
Yeah, it's sort of like a brick reddy kind of color.
Okay.
But the reason why it's so important is because so if you think about a whale, right? Whales tend to feed at depth, okay? So they'll dive to the depths of the oceans to feed.
Okay.
And in these places they're feeding, there are nutrients, like, you know how you and I will take supplements like iron and stuff like that, because our bodies need a certain amount of supplements. So these whales will go to these areas, and there are these supplements like iron and nitrogen in these deep dark corners of the ocean. And as they feed on the things they feed on, so blue whales in Sri Lanka feed on tiny shrimp, they will also then ingest some of these nutrients. And these are nutrients that are not necessarily found in the surface of our oceans. Okay, so when they come up to the oceans, to the surface, they'll then poop. Right? And so there's all this poop now at the surface, and now you have this influx of nutrients that weren't there before, spread all around, right? And it's just like fertilizer. You know how we use fertilizers with nitrogen and all for our plants? It's the same thing. So this whale poop is the fertilizer of our oceans, and at the surface of our oceans, we have what we call phytoplankton. Phytoplankton. So phytoplankton are these microscopic plants that are all over the surface of our oceans. Okay. And so when, like plants on land, when they get fertilizer, they can do their thing because now they have all the nutrients, they have the sunlight they need.
What would they do?
So they photosynthesize, right? So they basically turn, carbon dioxide into oxygen. That's the simplest way to put it, right? And so then they release oxygen into the environment, and what happens? Who uses that oxygen? All of us.
Yes.
Right? So 50 to 70% of the oxygen that we breathe is actually generated by plants in the ocean. And at least some portion of that is fertilized by whale poop. So whale poop is so important to our survival.
60 to 70%?
50 to 70%. Yeah. 70%? A large chunk.
From the plants in the ocean?
Yeah. And we don't think about that, but it's a huge chunk of it.
I don't think not many people know that, because when we say trees give us oxygen, we think of the forest and all of that.
Exactly.
50 to 70 from the ocean.
Yeah, because there's tons of plants in the ocean. We just don't think about it. If the whole ocean surface, which is 70% of our planet, is covered by tiny microscopic plants, and then there's other things like seaweeds, or there's kelp, or there's other kinds of plants in the ocean. They're always doing this thing, which is photosynthesis, and they're releasing oxygen into the environment. And we are such huge beneficiaries. And that's a fact that I want people to just always hold on to. We need to care for the oceans, not because it's a beautiful place, not because, you can go and have a swim, but because our survival depends on it. And I want people to hold on to that and start to think twice about how they interact with the oceans for the sake of making sure that, if we want to survive, we need it.
Wonderful. So that's amazing. So this is something you focus on, the Blue Whale Project.
Yeah,
wonderful.
Whale poop is a thing for me.
I saw on YouTube there are some videos of you going out taking pictures and the whole whale poo and all that. Is that something that you do? Someone from the public, can they join you or go on a tour like that and check it out? Okay,
so our boats are research boats, so we don't really take the public out, but there are opportunities to go see whales. Some I'm not going to mention names of operators, but some operators are much better than others.
Okay.
It is a bit chaotic out in Mirissa, which makes me sad. It's kind of like the whole Yala scene, but in Mirissa. But I think it's a good point for me to say that, I don't discourage people from seeing what's out there, but I do discourage bad behavior. I do ask you to remember you are an empowered individual who can also drive change. So when you get out there on the water, if you think your boat operator is getting too close to the whales, harassing the whales, please make it known that you're uncomfortable and you're unhappy about it. Don't support operators like that. Make sure you're pretty vocal about who the good operators are and who the bad operators are, because the industry is not going to, at the moment, it's pretty chaotic. And it is a harassment for the whales. And I did a talk actually at National Geographic a couple of years ago.
Before you continue, I was talking to you earlier on a particular listener who had asked this question. Do you advocate the whale tourism aspect where tourists can snorkel with whales? And this is Kevin asking this question, and so this kind of connects to your topic. So he said he's intending to snorkel with whales pretty soon in Kalpitia. Do you advocate for, against? What's the scene in that?
Yeah, so that's a great question. So thank you very much for that. What I can say is actually, if you look at the law in Sri Lanka, it's actually illegal to get in the water with whales. So you're not allowed to swim with whales unless you have express permission from, particular high authority. But otherwise, if you're going with an operator who says that they can take you, if they don't have a legal permit, I would say please don't go, because it harasses the whales more than anything else. I know it's joyful for you, but it's not joyful for animals. These particular species aren't the kind that are curious or interactive. It actually stresses them out, and our job really should be about how do we appreciate these animals and nature in their purest form, in the sense that we are not getting involved and over-involved in interfering
in their lives,
and in their lives that can be quite disruptive to them. So I don't encourage it at all, and I don't advocate for it. And I'm just going to go back to the point that I was making, because it actually ties both of these things together. I did this talk at National Geographic about living with wildlife, and my talk was all about how people these days are so driven by the selfie culture and by social media that we will go through to great lengths to get that photograph of us with this animal, regardless of the stress or disruption we're causing to those animals' lives. And I think it's very irresponsible. Yes, it's great to have a photograph of us with a whale, or doing something with an animal like a dolphin or something, but we want these animals to be there for future generations. We want these animals to be in our oceans, because every species is in our oceans because it serves a purpose that keeps the ocean ecosystem intact and keeps it functioning properly. And so we have to be mindful of our actions. And I would ask people to go listen to this talk. It's up on my YouTube channel, called Living with Wildlife, National Geographic. And I did a talk at that stage, and I basically talk particularly about whale watching and also swimming with whales. And I have examples of how people don't care about the animals, and they're basically, it's all about, I got it too close. I know the animal was stressed out, but I didn't care. I got as close as I could because I wanted this photograph. So don't be a slave to your selfie culture. Don't feel like your life revolves around the likes on social media, and that's how you're going to become popular.
And most of
just
them,
don't.
They say it's like something cool.
It's not. It's really not. These animals need their space. Just like, let me just say, so it's like, for example, if you were sitting at lunch, on Sunday with your family and having a great meal, and you're sitting around having a chat and a laugh, and then suddenly a stranger comes crashing through the front door, doesn't knock, right? Comes in with a loud boombox on his shoulder, playing blaring music, throwing garbage all over your house, right? It's super stressful and it's really scary, right? And stop and think about the fact that that's exactly what we do, right? The ocean is their home, and we go into their homes uninvited, and we do all of that.
In your example, you can actually tell that guy to get out. Animals don't have no way to do
exactly. And we think, human beings love to think that we're the superior species, which is crazy. And so therefore we think that our actions, we decide the actions, but it's not the case. So if you don't appreciate random people coming to your house and disrupting your life, just be mindful that you go into their homes. Be respectful. So learn to respect those animals, just like you want to be respected in your own home.
Thanks for sharing that sentiment. Of course, that's something that not many people know. So do check that video out on YouTube. Say that again so that listeners hear
it's up on my Asha de Vos YouTube channel, I think, and it's called Living with Wildlife, Asha de Vos. If you Google that, you should be able to find it.
Fantastic. Now we'll take a break in a little bit, but this is more of a fun memory for you. What I'm going to bring out again, something to do with the whale. Omura's whale?
Yeah.
Okay, now you made a sighting in February 2017. I think you came on our sister channel TV1 as well for an interview when you were talking about it. You were very happy and you were so excited in that video interview that I saw. What was the experience like, and why is it significant for us? And also, have we sighted the whale since then, the Omura's whale?
Yeah, okay. So just to comment on the fact that you said I looked really excited, I'm always really excited. Okay. So as you can tell, I have a lot of energy,
That's
a lot of excitement.
Default.
Exactly. Default mode. I just think the ocean is a magical place. But so this Omura's whale was an amazing moment because the one thing is that it was a new species to the waters in Sri Lanka. So it had never been, documented in Sri Lankan waters before. And that was a particularly special thing. But also the fact that it was very close to shore. And I think the reason we hadn't documented it was because people weren't paying attention. Right? And my point with that is, if we are overlooking animals that can be 30 feet long, then what else are we missing in the oceans? What about all those other tiny, tiny, tiny things that we'd spend no time staring at, looking at to see if they're new, what are they doing in our oceans, right?
Did you is this legit? I read somewhere that you had made the comment that we have only explored up to 5% of our oceans?
Absolutely. That's
so 95%
a well-known fact.
We don't know what's happening
95%, so we don't know what's happening in 95% of our oceans, because 70% of our planet is oceans, and actually 98% of habitable space. So this, if you think about land, right? There's a lot of parts of land that you can't live in because there are deserts and stuff like that. But in the ocean, 98% of that space can support life, right? Which is really crazy.
Wow.
So there's it's a three-dimensional space. So we don't really think about it like that, right? It's not just the flat surface, but it's
Right.
like it goes deep in places. The sad thing is, while we haven't explored, 95% of our oceans, we are still having an impact in many of them. So just recently, there was a research expedition that found plastic at 11,000 meters deep in our oceans.
Wow.
There's probably like 3 people on this planet that have ever gone that deep, because you need sophisticated technology to take you to those places. But we've managed to get plastic to that depth. So we are having a crazy impact right across the globe. And we need to start thinking about how we change that.
Wow. Coming back into the Omura whale thing, have you sighted since 2017?
Yeah, so Omura's whales, they are apparent now. We realize that they're out there more often than we think.
Okay.
It's just that there are certain characteristic features that we have to look for to verify that that's what it is.
Okay.
But yeah.
I saw your explanation. One side is black, the other side is silver, something like that.
Yeah, so the bottom side, I think the bottom right jaw is white and the bottom left jaw is black, which is cool.
Wow.
And it has this pattern on its back that's really like kind of someone's smudged paint. It's really, really beautiful.
Right.
Yeah.
But is it the reason why, your excitement of the default mode, but the reason in that we did interview and you were talking about, you were so passionate about that whale was, does it not come to our waters?
No, so we didn't know it was in our waters. So it had been
Right.
spotted in Madagascar and in Japan. But there's a resident population in Madagascar. There'd been one sighting in Japan. And we didn't really know much about it. And so it was a new discovery to science, and so that was exciting, but it also helps us to understand a little bit more about this particular very elusive species, which the more we build knowledge, the more we can understand, how do we manage these populations better, how do we look after them better. So that's become quite important. And it contributes to a very big global database as well, which I think is really important.
Fantastic. We're talking to Dr. Asha de Vos today about her work in marine conservation efforts, of course, her achievements, is cool, all we have been talking about. We still got a little bit more to talk about whales, of course, and I think she's the perfect one to talk about. We're going to talk a little bit about the threats and our role, Sri Lanka's role in protecting the whales, all of that coming up on the show. Now, another track, we're going to be playing a Beatles song this time, Taste of Honey.
Yeah.
Why is that song special for you?
Well, I'll tell you, my mom is a mad Beatles fan.
So am I. Who isn't, no?
Yeah, that's true. Who isn't? And so this song, she used to love to, listen to this song, and I just thought I'd play something for her.
Okay, so this is going out to Dr. Asha's mom, A Taste of Honey, the greatest band of all time, the Beatles. Wow, wasn't that refreshing? The Beatles giving you a taste of honey. And we are getting a taste of her intelligence, of course. We are talking to Dr. Asha de Vos today in this Saturday morning. And time just flies. I didn't even realize it. So many things to learn from you. So thank you for coming today. And your mom, her favorite Beatles, Paul McCartney?
Yeah.
Your mom must be very happy when she heard that song.
Yeah. I'm
Lovely.
hoping, anyway, I hope I get some brownie points, Amma.
Okay.
What's for lunch?
Okay. Now, whales, you are championing the effort of protecting them and talking about them and why they are so important to our ecosystem. You were talking about in the talk about the threats they are facing, and you highlighted the ship whale collision as the most prime thing that they have to worry about. What is that? If you can educate us in terms of some numbers of how bad this happens in our waters or worldwide. And also, you also talked about changing the course and, making it healthy. So explain a little bit on that.
Sure. So the biggest threat that the blue whales in our waters face is where they get hit by ships and get killed.
Okay.
It's not a pretty sight. This is the largest animal that's ever roamed our planet. Yet the one thing that can kill it is a man-made thing, which is a giant ship. And they are many times smaller than these ships, which is also quite astounding to see. The thing is, the southern coast of Sri Lanka is the most important artery through the Indian Ocean for ship traffic. Basically, everything from Singapore to Dubai goes through this area. So you can imagine, these are two of the biggest ports in the world. And as a result, shipping has increased. It's doubled since the 70s globally. But around our waters, for example, it's quadrupled because the trade is changing, right? So what happens is when you have increasing number of whales and, you have whales and they're using these particular waters for particular purposes like feeding, and you have these ships constantly going through, it's a numbers game. As you increase the number of ships, the amount of collisions that can happen are also obviously going to increase. So we have, direct evidence of this happening. We have a couple of very evident cases where
I
whales
saw
have
one
been killed.
picture is very heartbreaking. A whale entangled in the
front of the container ship.
Yes.
Yeah, it's a really, like, when I show this to audience, I always get a gasp because I think it really makes people realize that, these animals are huge, but they're really not huge against these ships that are in the oceans, right? And so, the thing is that carcasses like that are not always things that we come across, because oftentimes whale carcasses or the dead bodies of whales will sink or get pushed offshore depending on which way the circulation is going at the time. But sometimes they wash up on shore. They might be very deteriorated because, especially in our conditions, the flesh will deteriorate very fast. But sometimes we have evidence, and that evidence is more than enough for us to know that it is a problem. Similar problems happen in places like California, and in California they've shown that for every whale that gets documented killed by a ship, there's at least 10 others that have gone undocumented. So it is a problem that's significant. We did a lot of science around this, and I've been working on this particular problem since 2012. So that's a long time. Like I said, results don't happen overnight in conservation, so it's a long battle. But we've shown that, by shifting shipping lanes just, 25 kilometers further south off the south coast of Sri Lanka, we can basically separate where the ships and the whales are so that there's no collision of this nature.
Thing is, Dr. Asha, now that is an international policy change. That's a very severe thing. Yeah. Changing shipping lines is no joke.
Absolutely.
Can we get that done?
So, that's an awesome question, and I want to instill hope in people's hearts, because one thing is we're not doing something that has never been done before. They have shifted shipping lanes for this very same reason of the US, of Canada, of places like Spain and Panama. So here it's a very addressable situation. Also, we had a meeting actually last year with the World Shipping Council and the International Maritime Organization. So the International Maritime Organization actually is the big UN kind of governing body that overlooks all shipping lanes in the world.
Right.
The World Shipping Council is this membership organization that actually has all the biggest shipping companies under it. And we brought them to the table and we said, hey, this is an issue that we've been working on. What do you think? And they actually said, we support the shift in shipping lanes, because shifting it just that little bit is actually negligible in terms of fuel costs and distance traveled for their ships. In fact, the World Shipping Council said that some of their biggest companies that work with them are voluntarily shifting offshore now because they've heard of the work that we've been doing. So now about 23% of vessels,
that's so
it's amazing, right?
Amazing.
So 23% of vessels that are actually going past our southern coast are voluntarily shifting offshore. So now what I want to point out is we are trying to address this problem related to the 90% of vessels that don't stop in Sri Lanka, right? So 90% of the vessel traffic that's going through this area, they are not stopping in our Colombo port or even Hambantota. So those are the vessels we're trying to shift offshore. The 10% that need to come into our ports, we are still trying to come up with other measures that can make sure that the industry is not also suffering, because of course I'm a Sri Lankan and I believe in helping the economy grow and being stable, but at the same time in a way that can protect the whales. Now, with the shifting of the shipping lane, there are also other advantages. It's not just about protecting whales. Conservation is not purely about protecting a species or an ecosystem, but we have to consider the livelihoods and the other people that are involved.
It's multifaceted, because you can't let the economy suffer and then work on this. So you have to find the right balance. That's where the challenge is, you would say?
No, absolutely. And so what we've shown is that by shifting these shipping lanes just that little bit for that 90% of vessel traffic, we're also making it safer for the whale watch operators, because otherwise they're weaving in and out of these big shipping lanes, which can be really dangerous. We're making it safer for the small-scale fishing boats that are around our waters. 90% of fisheries in Sri Lanka are actually very small scale. And these people use the waters that are what we call near shore. So quite, maybe 10, 15, 20 kilometers offshore is the range that they'll go to. And that's a space that will be made safer. Also, by shifting ships further offshore, we're reducing ship-based pollution to coastal populations. So there is pollution that's generated by these ships that has been shown to affect populations that live along coastlines. There are higher cases of asthma and stuff in countries where they've actually measured that impact. And so by shifting ships, they found that that's kind of reduced that problem, and it becomes a lesser burden on the national economy as a result. So there are lots of benefits to making these changes, not just purely for the whales.
Oh, wow, that's so interesting. Now, the segue into this is now Sri Lanka's role in doing so. When you're talking about this, the economy, now you would be dealing a lot with local authorities, and what's the challenge on that end, and what do you need more from these authorities here in Sri Lanka?
The challenge is sometimes I think the challenge for the marine environment in Sri Lanka in general is that it's a new field. Marine conservation is so new in this country that you can talk about the same problem on land and you say, there's elephants and there's our vehicles that are driving to these elephants, and if we can separate where the elephants and the vehicles are, we can make it safe for the elephants. And there is some understanding of that and maybe some will to make change.
Right.
But somehow in the ocean, everything feels so out of sight, out of mind that their reaction is quite different. So people have asked a million questions. Every time an authority comes back with a question, we try to address it scientifically.
Right.
So sometimes we'll go off, and that's why it's taken so long. We'll go off, do more research, and we'll come back and be like, here you go, science-based, we have another resolution for you. So it's a dialogue that we've been having for many years, and it's a dialogue that I'm still willing to continue to have.
Do you see, is there any progress in this though?
What I can say is, in 2012, when I first introduced the problem, it was a New York Times article about my work and a video, and I talked about it. And at that time, there was a fisheries minister who basically stated, and it's in a newspaper, saying we will not shift shipping lanes or do anything just for the sake of whales, right? Flat no. 2 years later, still continuing the work, there was more articles around the work I was doing, and then the fisheries minister at that time said, you know what, we agree there's a problem and we need to consider how we make sure that we're protecting the whales and also look after our shipping industry.
Okay.
So to me, I think from the outside, sometimes people don't really see changes. But for someone like me who's been in there for so long, I see baby steps. I've learned to celebrate the baby steps and not to overlook them, because when you overlook them and you only look at that end goal, you start to feel like you're failing, and it can be really kind of detrimental to your own personal, kind of how you feel about yourself. I went through a period where I was like, I'm not succeeding in what I want to do. I want to do this. I want to make sure I'm protecting the whales, and no progress. And I got really pretty low on myself.
It's an ongoing fight, no?
It's an ongoing fight. And then the minute you start to say, okay, you know what? I made one step forward. I had one more conversation, and I'm going to count that towards my success. Then you start to see, we've made progress. I mean, more people are talking about the oceans today than they did, 15 years ago when I started, and that's a huge thing.
Dr. Asha, now the fishery minister, that was 2014 when he acknowledged that there's a problem. 6 years have passed since then.
Yeah.
What has happened? Where have we progressed?
Yeah, so we've had a lot more conversations with a lot more government authorities. Some authorities are on board and supportive, and some are still needing to be convinced. So we're still working on that. It's a work in progress. Yeah.
Okay. We just wish you all the very best, and if there's anything that anyone else could do, we're all here for you.
Thank you.
And you're such an inspiration for us. Now, in one of the recent interviews, you were talking about, a video that you did on your YouTube channel, which I've subscribed also now. You pioneered the blue whale research in the Northern Indian Ocean. Yeah. Now, you also realized at one point that you can't do this alone. And the other part of your entire career is to nurture the next generation, like Vinny De Silva and others, of course. Now you were talking about Isudu today, and people like that. How are you taking these steps, and what role does Oceans Well do here? Yeah.
Okay. So that's a great question. So I am very. I see my role increasingly not just as a scientist, but as an opportunity creator. But also this nurturer of that next generation, right? So we do a lot of things. Everything from, we try to create opportunities when we're running field seasons, but also internship programs in the office, to research assistantships. We're trying to work increasingly with local universities where we build projects and allow local university students to do those projects as part of their undergraduate thesis or master's thesis or a PhD thesis. So that's very important for me, and we can bring in the right guidance because I have these incredible networks of scientists across the globe who are also very much in line with my vision about nurturing and building capacity across the globe. Because my tagline is, if we truly want to save our oceans, every coastline needs a local hero. And I'm all about creating those local heroes in many, many ways. So then we create workshops and opportunities for kids of different ages. But then I also have things like, apart from public talks, I have this almost monthly session called Marine Conservation Conversations. Basically what it is, it's open to public. It's people register we send them a paper. I send them a scientific paper, and the reason I do that is I want people to realize that science is for everyone. You don't need a degree. You don't have to have a PhD. You don't have to be any fancy person. You can read science. And I obviously curate the papers I send out. And then we come together in a room on a particular day, eat cake, and basically break down the topic.
Cake is also
There's
there.
always cake.
Very nice.
But we break down the topic together.
Sorry, was I dragging?
No. You're getting really distracted right now by the food. I know it's breakfast time or it's past, but no. But the whole point is I want people from the general public to realize that they can just partake in these conversations and discussions. And so my community is amazing. I have people who are artists. I have people who are, work at corporates, I have lawyers, I have accountants, I have students. They come together and they're willing to sit and have a conversation around science because I make it possible in every way possible, and they talk to each other, and we are growing a marine conservation community, and I believe that all those people have a role to play. I don't care what your background is, because at the end of the day, no matter what your job is, you are having an impact on the ocean, and I want you to be ocean conscious so you can make the right decisions on behalf of the ocean and make sure you're contributing to the large cause of looking after the planet.
Okay, that's the objective of Oceans Well.
Yeah.
Now, I also noticed that you're hiring right now at Oceans Well. Now, what are you looking for, and what kind of individual are you looking for to join your team? And if there are interests about it, I'm sure there's so many.
Yeah.
How are they going to apply?
Okay, so the first thing I want to say is that if people are ever interested to work with us, I would ask that they go onto our website or social media and look at if there are opportunities. We get a lot of people looking for internships, but we can't cater to everyone because we are a very small organization, and so we run on a shoestring budget, which we are hoping we can raise more funds for, which is also another thing. But we try to put out our needs, and we ask people to apply based on the needs we're looking for. We did have 2 application positions open, and we're hoping we'll find people, but at the moment we're still at that phase for a program officer and operations officer. So they're both more administrative roles, but those are really important roles for organizations like ours, because we need people who can help us to make sure that the accounts are straight, that we're communicating with people constantly, that we're writing to our donors, that we're reporting properly. Those are the roles that we need support on, and we've been looking for people for that. All our opportunities are generally listed on the Ocean Swell webpage. You can browse through, but it's under opportunities. We are also going to open up for some specific internships very, very shortly. So I'd encourage people to look for that also and apply if they feel that they fit what we're looking for. And we also say that, internships, please don't ask us for a 2-week program or, whatever. If you're
customized programs.
No, yeah. It really is, you have to work with us at least 1 to 2 months, because otherwise it's a huge investment on our part to train people to just come and go. And also, a lot of parents write to us asking for internships for their kids. I would say, please don't do that, because if your kid is interested, we hope that they will write to us and ask us for opportunities, because we would like to have the interest of the child and not necessarily of the parent, right? So that's important to me as well. And I'm very particular about these things, because I think children, students, young people should be self-driven. And if they come with that passion, that's the only time we can do anything with them. If they don't, we can't.
Absolutely. That's a good guideline, of course, for looking at Oceans Well and what they do, and for that hiring process you were saying, and what kind of people should come to. Now, we're going to be playing a song that actually will bring a lot of memories for everyone. Everyone loved The Jungle Book.
Yeah.
Now, Dr. Asha, when we are back, I'm going to ask you a very serious question. It's going to be pretty serious. A conversation I was having with a bunch of friends last night. I want to know your take on that. I'll get back to that on it. Now, coming back to this song, why do you like this song? Is it everyone loves Jungle Book, right?
Well, actually, Jungle Book is my favorite movie cartoon of all time. And it's also something that really binds my brother and I together, because as kids, we used to go to Nastas and we used to borrow the video. My mom used to borrow the video for us because we were obsessed with this cartoon.
You just reminded me of Nastas.
I know,
wow.
I know, so old, right? But Nastas actually had made a special copy, because we used to go and we used to return it and we used to re-borrow it. So they had to make a special copy just for my brother and I.
Okay.
And my brother and I knew all the words. My mom said it was so annoying, because we would be talking on top of the characters. But it is so symbolic of my childhood. I think it's one of the most beautiful cartoons. I have had friends who tell me I'm kind of like Mowgli because I walk around barefoot and I'm sort of a wild child. And I find that a huge compliment, because I think Mowgli's cool and has amazing friends. Who doesn't want Baloo the bear as a friend, right?
Why not? No?
Exactly. And this song is also it's such a good reminder to think of the bare necessities of life and to just sit back and relax and sometimes just embrace what we do have in our lives and just not always feel like you have to strive for something, huge and more expensive or whatever, but just appreciate what we have in our lives and around us at all times.
Thank you, Dr. Asha. You put it beautifully. This song is going to bring back a lot of memories for all of you out there, myself as well. Enjoy this track. Now, if you heard that whistling part, that was actually Dr. Asha. I put the mic on. She didn't even realize she was whistling on. But hey, you were enjoying that song. But brings back a lot of memories, no?
Yeah, of course.
Did you watch the new adaptations that
No,
they
I
did?
didn't. I might get sad.
Why?
I don't know, because for me, like Jungle Book is that cartoon.
No,
Maybe I need to be brave about this. Okay, I'm going to embrace this and I'm going to be brave.
I'm also like you. If there's anything that's old that they redo it, I'm also like, why would they want to redo that? But then this was pretty good. I liked it. I mean, for me. But okay, now this is the question.
Okay.
Now I was talking about you and you're coming on the show and I'm interviewing you and I was speaking to a couple of friends and all of them were commending your work and what you have done and being an inspiration. And one thought that came up from one friend was, I wanted to word this very correctly so I don't offend you, so I'm going to just read this out. I was thinking how to put this in a nice way. As a Sri Lankan, getting into such field of work is a privilege. You can only do so if you come from a privileged background. You had the support from parents to go chase your dream, going to foreign universities, but most Sri Lankans don't. And Sri Lanka does not have the resource or the infrastructure to facilitate such a career. Now, the point she was making to me was a rural student can only dream of something like this. And for them to go chase that ambition, it's a privileged field of work. And what she was saying was Dr. Asha should be highly regarded by many for her career, but sadly, it's not something that most Sri Lankans interested in marine biology can achieve. Now, something like this, this sounds negative, but it comes from a good place. I know her. She's a doctor as well. So she meant it in a very good way. She was basically commenting on the situation. Now, this is my rebuttal to her. So I'll tell that also, then I'll get to you. What I was saying from my limited understanding, Dr. Asha, what I was saying was, you're a Sri Lanka woman, you're making your name in the global scene and in the field that you've chosen to work as. Now, because of you and the awareness initiatives that you're doing, it actually gets a lot of people to talk about it, get to know more about it. And even Vinuri Silva, another marine biologist, was saying she didn't even know that there was a field called marine biology because we don't have it here in Sri Lanka. She had to go to Australia to learn. And because of you and people like Vinuri Silva, now the awareness is coming in. Hopefully, with the right push from leaders like you, bring that into the local school and university curriculum and get the students to get more involved in it. Eventually, it will get to a point where our youth can access it in the future. So my my rebuttal to my friend when I was saying is, because of Dr. Asha and people like Vinuri Silva, okay, look, they went to foreign universities and all of that, but they came back home. So they are starting the path that a lot of the future kids are going to go forward with. So this is the beginning. That was my argument.
Yeah, okay.
How are you going to respond to what she was saying?
I'm going to respond to this by saying, look, I think it's very easy for people to imagine that this is a job for the privileged. And I think that's absolutely wrong. So, like I said, I think you make things happen if you want them to happen. Right? I wanted this to happen in my life. I wanted to make this change. I wanted to go into marine conservation. I wanted to serve my country. So I left. I didn't want to leave at 18. I can tell you that if I could have done the degree here, sure, I would have done it. Right? But I did everything I could to get the right support to be able to go. The only thing I had going for me was parents, for sure. Right? No doubt about it. But we all have cheerleaders. We just have to know who those cheerleaders are and respond to them. Right? I think, I have seen people do amazing things, right, in this world. And it's not because I was not born with a scuba tank on my back. I can tell you that. I think it's a big judgment to make if you don't know the person and the life that they come from. So I think
Dr. Asha, to be really fair to my friend, she was not commenting on you. I think she was the career choice.
No, I know. And what I want to say is...
enabling environment.
Yeah, so what I want to say is it's very hard to make the judgment. So, for example, Isuru, my student or my research assistant, he's from Badulla. Right?
Okay.
So are you saying that, a statement like that, I think also, it's not that it only sounds negative to me, but I think for people who are coming from different backgrounds might actually start to feel it's not possible.
Right.
And that's not fair because it is possible. There are local universities that provide some level of education in this field. There are fisheries and aquaculture degrees.
So that is available here in the country?
That's available. You can't study marine conservation. So my organization is building an online course in marine conservation for Sri Lankan students.
Right.
We are trying to fill the gaps. The marine environment is there are increasing numbers of jobs in the marine environment. We are trying to prepare that next generation of students. I don't really care about where the background or where they come from or who they are or their gender. If they have a passion, I know they can make it happen. And so I don't think it is only a space that you can go into if you come from if you come from Colombo, for example. And I'll tell you the beauty of my work, and I'll tell you the people who matter to me the most are students from across the island, from rural places, as we'd like to call them, who write to me and say, ma'am, I want to do this, right? And I'll tell you what's so precious about that is because maybe I don't dress like everybody out there. Maybe I look different. Maybe I speak different. But they are able to look beyond all of that and look inside me and realize that I have a true passion for driving change, and I have a true passion for allowing people who want to do it to do it. And so if everyone around there can see that, I mean, I don't think it's a matter of where you come from, who you are. I think anyone can do what they want and they can dream.
It's basically up to you to go after it.
Totally.
So one more thing. Now, I made the point that when I was making the rebuttal to my friend, I was telling that your achievements is going to enable someone or you or someone else, some other leader, to push it into local school curriculum, into as a proper subject to study, a degree in marine biology. Have you made any efforts? Have you thought about talking to local authorities about, bring this into the education system?
Yeah, so we work anyways with local universities.
Right.
We create projects for students from Ocean University.
Right.
We work with, basically I do talks at local universities all the time.
Okay.
So I definitely, I've been working on this for a long time on how to get it in the local curriculum. It may not be on an official capacity like that, but it might be through projects that we build for students to come and be involved in. We have been taking students out on the water for years now, students from local universities, from very local backgrounds. We run field courses so these local students can go and experience the ocean environment and learn about it at the same time. And we do provide a lot of different opportunities for that to happen, and that's the ultimate goal. But I definitely think no matter what job, and it's not just marine biology, I think it's an easy cop-out to say, oh, but she came from this background or he came from this background. That's a cop-out as far as I'm concerned. Because I think there are lots of people doing a lot of amazing things that have come from, you hear stories of homeless people who have then gone on to become entrepreneurs around the world, right? Are we ruling people out just because of the fact that they're homeless? No.
Yeah.
They've made it happen because that's what their burning desire was.
Okay. Fantastic. Thank you, Dr. Asha. Now a little more on the fun side now.
Okay.
We had a very serious topic, so I want to brighten up your mood now.
Super serious.
Okay. These are rapid fire questions, okay? Yes or no, who or what, and maybe a little bit of why. Deep water diving with director James Cameron on the Mariana Trench, or high tea with Sir David Attenborough talking about his experience.
I will say David Attenborough, okay, because David Attenborough, oh my God, if I ever meet that man, I will hug him like a koala bear and I will never let go because he is my idol. No, not idol is the wrong word, but he is like one person I hugely respect because he has done what I think is so important to the world, where he has brought nature into everyone's houses regardless of their background and given them the opportunity to experience the world in such a spectacular way. And I just think he's a hero to me, and I aspire to kind of do the same as he has done for the oceans in my own way. Also, I've met James Cameron, so it's cool.
Oh wow.
So I haven't met David, and I would love to.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah. But is the Mariana Trench thing something you want to do one day?
Yeah, and who knows, things like that might happen in the next few years.
Oh, okay. So, the way you said it, maybe it's gonna happen. Okay. Now another fun question: the celebrity you always wanted to meet but will end up speechless, David Attenborough.
Yeah, David Attenborough for sure.
Okay.
I might be speechless, or I might just overtalk, but anyway.
Okay. The superpower that you would love to have, why? Aquaman style?
That's a good question. Superpower. You know what a superpower I'd like to have is the power to make people gossip about the oceans, so that they're talking about the oceans every day and not about these celebrities and all the other rubbish that we get caught up in, and that people are constantly just be talking about the oceans. That's the superpower I'd like to get out there.
Okay. One more question. You get an audience with President Donald Trump. What would you ask him?
I don't know. I can't. I don't want to talk to him. There's no point. You can't reason with someone who doesn't want to be reasoned with.
True. Well, Kim Kardashian did.
I don't want to equate myself to Kim Kardashian.
I know.
Please.
I know.
But yeah.
I
The thing
get
is,
that,
I know what his environmental policies are like, and I know they don't align with mine. That's the problem. So.
Are you following the Democratic primary that's happening right now? Bernie, Warren?
Sort of, yeah.
Not much.
No.
Okay.
I mean, I do just because I know how much it impacts all of us, what happens in those larger countries. So, but yeah.
Okay, we're coming to the last part of the show, and this is usually where I kind of ask you to reflect on certain things. And what's your end game? What exactly in your effort of what you're doing, your personal end game? You're doing a lot of things environment-wise. What do you consider when you finish this, when you call it the career? What's your end game, the fulfillment? Where does that happen?
Okay, so I would like to, I genuinely, like, my dream is that everyone will talk about the oceans at least once a day.
Right.
It's 70% of our planet. There's a lot of people who don't ever talk about it, and I want it to be a topic of, that's why I say I want people to gossip about the oceans, so that it's just in everyday language, everybody's conversation. I want to leave this planet a better place than I found it. And I want to have impacted people's lives in a very positive way and created the opportunities that I dream of for the people that around me. And I want to empower people to believe in themselves and to know that regardless of who you are, regardless of where you come from, you can do what you need to do and you can change the world. And I think that's where I'd like to lie on my deathbed and just sort of reflect and know that I've done all of that and I have no regrets.
Wonderful, wonderful. Now, thank you so much, Dr. Asha. The show usually ends at 10:30. We have gone up way up time, but it was so interesting, and the messages are coming up, giving us sentiments that they like you and what you're doing. So thanks to everyone who messaged on WhatsApp, and in all the stuff that you're doing, of course, all the very best.
Thank you.
And also, keep inspiring us, and for what you're doing, keep educating us, keep teaching us. I have learned so much by just researching about you, and of course your work with Oceans Well, the Blue Whale Project. Just keep doing those videos. We want to see visual mediums like that kind of actually is very interesting. And thank you so much for all of that. Thanks for everyone out there who tuned in, sending in your messages, asking Dr. Asha certain questions, of course. And have a lovely rest of the day. What are you going to do next after this interview?
After this, I don't know. I'm going to have to go eat. I think I'm hungry.
Mom would have made some nice lunch.
I don't know. I want to go home. That's what I'll do. I'll go home and chat to my parents about how they think it went and just roll on with my day.
Okay, so how did the interview go? This must be the longest interview I've ever done, no?
Yeah, probably, especially radio. I've enjoyed it, and I do appreciate that you did your research. I much prefer radio or any kind of interviewer who actually has done background research so the conversation flows. I'm going to say this and it's going to be really controversial, but I do like that you're a radio DJ without an accent. And I know there's probably people who'll be really upset when I say this, but
when I started radio, I did not want to have an accent.
Yeah, but
I just want to sound normal. Just this is how you'll talk when I'm outside, not here. So.
Yeah, so we are Sri Lankan, and I think we have to have that pride that this is how we sound, and that's fine. We're not catering to anyone else, and this is how I sound. I speak on global stages all over the world. This is how I sound in here. This is how I sound out here, out there, and this is how I sound when I'm running on the streets. So, I appreciate that very much.
Thank you so much.
Thanks.
High five, sister. High five. Thank you very much. Well, the last song we're going to play, again, Dr. Asha's favorite track, of course. Tell us something about this track.
I love dancing, and I think it makes me happy, and I think everyone should embrace it and feel the music and just let go sometimes.
All right. Thank you, Dr. Asha. Have a lovely rest of the day. Thanks to everyone tuned out there, of course. Check out our Facebook page, Legends, of course, 966.com is our website. Our Facebook page, facebook.com/Legends966. Follow Dr. Asha de Vos on Instagram, Facebook. You can find out so many things about what they do. Also, like us also, the Facebook page of Legends. Well, take care of yourselves. Have a lovely rest of the day. This is ABBA giving you Dancing Queen.